Hello, today I'm joined with a special guest called Sus. Is that how we say it? Or Sush?
Yeah. Seuss.
Sus. Oh, beautiful. Where are you calling from? Where are you at?
Um, I'm from based in New York.
Beautiful. The R. Kelly, not, is it the R. Kelly? Oh, the P. Diddy case is going on in New York, isn't
Oh
it?
yeah, yeah.
Had us gripped. It's very interesting because they talk about the agendas and the Illuminati, dark force, all that kind of stuff, and the music industry, the Hollywood industry, and all that stuff. And yeah, but I've heard that New York's got quite good energy.
To be honest, I don't know. I feel mixed, maybe a bit mixed feelings about it at the moment. I think the things has been a bit hard right now with like a lot of um violence in the trains. So I don't know. I'm a bit kind of against New York right now. I think there's just a lot of violence happening, but that's just like my 2 cents. What's happening?
Crazy energies. So another
Yeah.
person who has a color coordinated shelf. One of my best friends has that, and another girl I work with at work has that. So
Oh, this is Zoom background, by the way. This is not.
okay, it's not your
Yes, 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 no.
wonderful. So you joined from us from New York. So let's talk about, you want to talk a little bit about your background, like what's your family ethnicity, background, culture, how were you as a young person?
Yeah, my name is Seuss, and I'm based in New York, and I'm 28 years old. I keep messing up my age, but I'm 28 years old, and my family is originally from Bangladesh, so that's near India, and they migrated from there, and I ended up being born here, and I've been living in New York my whole life, essentially. Um, like for growing up, my family is very religious, um, and I think growing up, I've always been someone who's been a bit more reserved, very introverted. My Myers-Briggs personality test, if anyone never took that, is INFJ. So I can come off very like extroverted in a smaller crowd, but like deep down, I'm very introverted. I need my little alone space. Um, I think growing up, I would definitely describe myself as someone who was very um, I would use analogies. So I would describe myself as someone who's walking around viewing the world with a veil over her face. I felt like I wasn't truly processing things, like things didn't fully click, and I was just kind of mindlessly wandering around. And I mean, later on, I kind of like figured out like, hey, maybe I have like a bit of like ADHD, and maybe I just had a hard time processing things. Um, but I've always just felt that way, and I've always had been a bit more insecure, very reserved, and I think I ended up kind of going through like my dark night of the soul, end of high school, and then throughout like my college, during my college time. Um, During this time period, it was just I think again, I wasn't really happy with who I was. I didn't like how reserved I was. I felt like I had like a certain label. And after I'm sorry, after high school, I got into college and I kind of became like a complete 180 where I was just very extroverted, talking to everyone and anyone and just making so many friends. And in the midst of it, I just kind of got involved with like not the wrong crowd. Like I had a great crowd, but it's just I just like kind of was lo I was lo kind of lost, to be honest. I was kind of lost with my career choices, what I wanted to do for my undergrad, and I was also involved in just so many dramas that I didn't even ask for. And looking back at it, and during the whole time, I think it was just all like orchestrated. I think I just needed to really heal. I had dealt with a lot of like self-worth issues where I felt like I needed to do so many things. I wasn't good enough, so I got myself involved in so many activities, and I felt like I was always an A student, and suddenly failing a class, I felt like that rejection and just really. affected
External,
me in many
external stuff,
internal
validation.
stuff, yeah. And I think like I also just felt like the way I was going through, especially like in undergrad, I felt like I was like in a hamster wheel of like how many things that were happening. And I feel like I probably met like my catalyst during this time period just because the person I had a crush on or I felt deep feelings for, honestly, I think it could be maybe limerence at this point. I really don't know, but this person definitely triggered some type of growth in me and made me realize, um, where I need to heal. And I didn't know at that time, but throughout that time period, I realized I had a bit of like daddy issues, and then I felt like my relationship with my dad was kind of like non-existent. Like my dad was just there, he was just there, but I couldn't really dig into like anything about him 100%. And I think that's most like South Asian fathers. They just are just kind of there. They aren't fully involved. Don't want to speak for everyone though, but at
Like
least
not opening up, not emotionally being
yeah, and
physically
yeah, and
caring.
my dad was always someone who didn't know how to express himself and he didn't really know how to show love and affection. And I think that was another thing that really affected me where I felt like I really just wanted put myself out there. I want to be in a relationship, meet people, but then for some odd reason, I can never get into a relationship. It's like almost like God didn't want me to be involved in anything, and I would be kind of like stuck in these like really minor situationship, and I would end up going after like emotionally unavailable men, and I knew subconsciously who I would go for. It would never work out, but it's just like I don't know, maybe it was just again very familiar, and I didn't know, hey, this is maybe triggering my childhood wound or replaying my interactions with my dad, but I had no idea at that time, and but I remember. Um, During this time period, while I was going through so many issues, I did have this was also a time period where I just needed to like learn to like let go and trust God. And I felt like I had a lot of like spiritual experience. This was also a time period where like I had a bit of an arranged marriage situation. I right before I think in 2017, that m few months prior, I just had an intense knowing that, oh my God, I feel like because I was gonna go to Bangladesh for a cousin's wedding, and I just knew something's gonna happen regarding marriage. Everyone thought I was crazy, but I'm like, something is telling me in my gut that there's gonna be an arranged marriage some way or
You were
form.
very young. You're like 20
Yeah,
or something.
I was like 20. I had just turned 20, um and I felt like no one really knew how to comfort me because I literally sounded crazy. And when and then when I went to Bangladesh, literally whatever I felt thought kind of happened where someone sent like a rishta proposal to me, a marriage proposal to me, and it was someone from the States who told their people back home, and my parents didn't know how to handle this type of situation. And I was, um, thankfully, I mean, I felt like I did the best I can, but I was very much in survival mode. So I felt like my whole time in Bangladesh was very intense. It was great because I was exposed to so many things, but there was just a lot of like things I needed to um deal with, I guess like process once I got back. And I think again, since I was in such a survival mode, once I got back, that's when things really hit me. And that's when like things just got worse and worse in terms of like marriage, who I want to be with, and I was fighting for something that no one understood. And I feel like deep down, I've always knew that there was someone there out for me, and I just couldn't explain it to my parents how this person is just not it for me. I kept trying to compare it with, hey, it feels like I'm walking across the street and a car hit me. This is how this situation feels like an accident to me. And I'm telling you, this person is not it for me. And it was very difficult. And I think in the midst of all of this, I was having a lot of like friend drama. And it made me kind of, I think I thought I had a bit of anger issues. So I put myself into like therapy because I'm like, I don't know what's going on. Maybe I need therapy. And
At
that's
this
when I did.
time, you're like very young. You're at college or university, and
Mhm.
all this pressure and ambush, and you got all sorts going on. You're still young.
Yeah, it was a lot. It was a really, really a lot. And Again, I felt like issues after issues kept happening. That's why I feel like during this time period from 20, and I also didn't know at that time, but I was going through depression. So I already had a bit of depression, in like high school. And the theme was the fact that again, re related with not feeling good enough, not feeling like um, was worthy enough regarding grades, and I just had very low self-worth, and I felt like and it was regarding like education and regarding like succeeding, because I felt like as an immigrant parents, I
Pressure.
felt like being first generation, needing to, make their dreams come true. I felt like I had that pressure and I couldn't deal with rejection essentially,
What
and
were
I
you
didn't know.
studying? What was your
Um,
major?
so I initially started in environmental studies, and then I ended up changing so many times. I ended up graduating with a sociology background, and I minored in Asian American studies and geography. So at the end, it worked out for me, and things kind of lined up, and you'll see how where throughout like this dark night of the soul, like whatever I wanted to do makes sense. But initially, I was just so lost and clueless, and I was just doing things to make people happy, doing things to look for things to look good on paper, like being involved in so many things, but I just couldn't really figure myself out. I just knew at this time period, I just loved, being involved in religion. I was very spiritual at this time too. I was the president of Hindu Student Association at that time, and I was really much involved in like the spiritual
Your
space.
your background is Hindu?
Yes, I don't think I meant to mention about my
No,
background.
because Bangladesh, I was thinking I was going to ask you Hinduism or Islam.
Oh yeah, so we're a minority in Bangladesh. So my family, and my family we're also Brahmin. So that's just to have a bit of like
So then
background.
priestly caste, which is a high caste,
Yes.
so a lot of
Yes.
connection with the divine. So
Mhm.
that Hinduism would have helped you on this journey, I assume.
Yeah, yeah. I that's what I think in many ways, like especially the past 2 years when I met my twin flame, which we'll go into, um, it definitely helped a lot. And I think but back to what I was trying to say prior was during this time period, again, at the end, I went to therapy, and I also was when I kind of hit so rock bottom where I was sick and tired of my patterns. I was sick and tired of like constantly skipping class, missing out in class. And this was also where, again, I think I mentioned prior, I was taking a lot of religion courses and a lot of humanity-based courses. I think that's what kept me going. And I couldn't really realize like, hey, at the time I was doing environmental studies, these science courses, this is not my calling. This is not what's meant for me. It doesn't really connect with me. And I didn't know because I had these courses as buffer. So it wasn't until like my last year, maybe like my junior, senior year, when I only had science courses where I was so miserable, and I was just going through like my depressive episodes, and I was just so sick and tired of that, where I was just like, I don't know what's wrong with me. I need help. And I don't know why I keep going to this cycle of avoid, and I had a very much avoiding tendencies, and I would go through depressive episodes, and I didn't know what was going on with me. And I was so lucky I had a great support system around me in general, and I had to work myself backwards to kind of figure out like, okay, what major do I need to do? And that's when I kind of figured out like, hey, sociology is my calling, is what I should be doing. And the minute I did sociology, things just like flowed. This was also a time period
I
where
love sociology. I used to teach it in
oh, really?
oh yeah, I love it,
I
obsessed.
love so it just everything connects for me. I think like I just couldn't figure out what course load I should be doing that kind of connects the way I think, and that really helped. But again, I had to really work myself backwards. And what happened was also this time period where when I think I mentioned about going to therapy. Yeah, I went to therapy, and I um knew that I had like certain selective issues, but I just had so much stuff in my plate where I just couldn't do it. So what I actually did, I was journaling a lot. I was journaling a lot, and this was also a time period where I was really big on like manifestation and law of attraction, and I was like listening to a lot of mantras, and I was really journaling. I was like trying to help myself cope with this dark time, and um That helped a lot. What biggest thing I did was like with journaling to kind of figure out what was the root problem. I just kept journaling and writing prompts and trying to like dig deeper and deeper, deeper into like why am I acting this way? These patterns, where did it start? And that's when I figured out like, oh, my self-worth issues where I felt like I needed to prove myself. That's why I kept getting involved in things that looks good on paper, but my heart wasn't in it. And like, um, and in the midst of all of this, like I felt like I had a lot of divine experience where I think my cat, honestly, my cat just fell into my lap during this time period. I wasn't even looking for her. And like she came into my life. And again, I think when you're so depressed, I think it was so hard to get myself out of bed. And when I had my cat, I kind of felt like I was forced to just get up just for the sake of her livelihood and make sure my room is clean, make sure I'm feeding her. And I think in many ways, and even having her in my life, it was such a battle. I always feel like I would call myself a fighter because I feel like I'm always have to fight for things, to fight for my values, to fight for what I believe in. And my cat Layla is like was one of the person I had to really fight for because my parents was so against me
I love
adopting her.
that.
Yeah, and like during this time period too, again back to like the whole boy situation, I think I was in a really weird situation where I'm not fully like I guess I'm spiritual, but I'm not like religious. I'm not bounded by religion. But I felt like when it came to dating, really did not like the hookup culture. I didn't really look up the hookup culture, and I felt like and a lot of the people I would be around are mostly like Muslims, like they're Pakistanis or like or Bengali Muslims. And I think I felt like I resonated a lot more with them. And I felt like when it came to dating, I felt like I didn't know where I fit, because I felt like, I guess in Muslim terms, the halal and haram ratio never really matched to finding
And were
someone.
your parents like against? Because I had a Pakistani boyfriend at
Mhm.
one point for 6 years, and my parents in the beginning were so against it.
I've never been in a relationship, so I've been in like situationship, and I would always end up going after like men who were either from Arab background or Muslim background. And I felt like another thing with me is that um I'm very picky. Like I feel like it's really hard to find someone attractive. And I'm also a bit how do I say I don't notice when people are interested in me. I think I'm a little bit in my own little head sometimes. And I think another thing I have PCOS, so I've dealt with a lot of like body shame issues growing up. Like I remember when I was young, like a boy used to make fun of me because I like my mustache, but I think that's all brown girls have like mustache growing up. So I think like during that time period, it was just such a jarring experience with like, I'm pretty sure he liked me. I'm pretty sure he had a crush on me, but at that time I didn't know. And at that time I took it as like, oh my God, I'm so ugly. And that made me feel so uncomfortable around boys. And I felt like
Because boys, they tend to ridicule you or say things
yeah.
that they like you. Yeah.
Yeah, and again, I was just so closed off. I never really like mingled with boys, and I was never that girl who knew how to talk. I always went towards like girls who were kind of like the quiet girls. Like I would go to the quiet girls, and I ended up being the loudest one within the quiet girls. So it was like, again, my INFJ really kicked in there. Um, but yeah, I think like I always struggled in that aspect where I can't find like a nice, happy balance with someone where they're cultural, but it's like I'm not bounded and restricted in that sense. But for the longest time, I was using religion as an excuse. I was using religion as an excuse. But I also, I think, to be honest, religion and my body image and issues really was a blessing in disguise because it wasn't until like later on when I really had the moment to sit down and think, I was just like, oh wow, I think I just innately believe there's someone out there for me, and they just never really resonated. And I think like I was just looking for my forever person.
You said you
And
use religion as an excuse. An excuse for what?
excuse for not really like being in a relationship with anyone. Like I think of course me having like daddy issues and going after and like I think if you think about it like scientifically or maybe psychologically, yeah, my daddy issues played a part. But then I felt like when it came to putting myself out there and like talking to men and to going on dates, I just never did. I always like rejected men when they would like approach me. And but I think it was my own insecurity that prevented from anything from happening, you know? And
Is that because you felt like you were worthy of that
yeah,
attention?
like again, I felt like again growing up, I felt like the ugly duckling. So it wasn't until like I got to college and again I had a really great support system, these group of girls. I saw them as like my older sister. They always hyped me up and they thought I was beautiful and gorgeous. And honestly, I really needed that like words of affirmation because growing up I didn't have that.
But do you believe
So
that now? Because what I see is a
mm,
gorgeous person. You know, you got a
uh,
great facial features, your eyes, obviously being South Asian, the eyes are always popping, and
uh,
then lips and teeth and everything. And you're very well spoken and intelligent and educated, and I love all your piercings. So do you
oh,
and your
thank
skin tone, but do you like appreciate that now about yourself?
Oh yeah, like I think like I really had like that. And growing up, I went to also like my high school was mostly predominantly white. So for again, the beauty standard was like white beauty. So I felt like I never fit in, and within that, and in my head, I had a very skewed perspective. And I think already having that experience of um boys kind of like making fun of me of my body hair that like really affected my my confidence and I was just like oh no like men probably think I'm ugly and I think I carried myself that way but I also think I would also really overthink so I kind of felt like oh my God they're gonna know that I've never been with a guy before you know I've always just had that feeling and I just didn't know how to like navigate through that and again just all in my head to be honest and I just didn't know how to navigate through that. And but then again, deep down, when I really reflected, I just had this very like um this vision. I had this vision, and this would kind of go into where when I during this time period when I was going through my dark night of the soul, I used paintings, poems. I used to write poems. I used paintings, and journaling as a way to heal. And during this time period, I think when I couldn't find the guy that I wanted, I just used, so there is this artist called Majid Jordan. I actually used him as kind of like my blueprint of like my forever person. I can't even explain to you like why I was attracted to him.
Like the qualities that he had.
Yeah, like I think it was just like, but it's so weird because when I'm trying to think back on like, hey, why was I even attracted to him? I cannot really pinpoint it, like why I was attracted to him. But you will see later on like the funny coincidence. I but it's like the music, the vibe, the energy, I just like really resonated and I would always listen to his music. And when I went to Bangladesh and during that time period where I was in that survival mode and I would always just like listen to the music and always like look up at the sky. Look up the
Was
sky.
it his confidence that inspired you?
No, you know what it was? I just loved some of his album, Majid Jordan, the first album. It was just about love and that warmth and that growth, you know? And I think like that was just something I was really drawn to of gr
Growing with your
me.
partner?
Yeah, and I think his also just I just felt so warm. I felt so warm hearing his music and I think how I want to experience love and how I want a man to think about me, feel about me is how I felt like he did a really good job in his music. I felt like his music just really spoke to my soul in many ways. So, now I used him as a blueprint and I end up again, I'm really big into art. Um you know, I love South Asian art and I had a phase like after like I graduated in 2019 of collecting South Asian art, specifically like Indo-Persian art. I was always drawn to that. And it's a funny coincidence because again, Bengalis, we don't really like I guess Bengalis, we have our own folk art, but I was never truly drawn to that. I was always drawn to like Pahari paintings, miniature paintings and things like that. And I actually did like a 23 and Me just out of
Oh yeah,
curiosity.
did you? Because when you said your name, I was like, are you a Persian? But anyway, what
Oh,
was
it's so funny. No, I did the 23andMe and I ended up getting like I'm like 63% Kashmiri, half Kashmiri, but it's like and
it?
half other half is Bengali. And I'm like, oh, it's so funny because I mean we don't have again because we're a minority in Bangladesh, like we don't have my family has been in survival mode and so we don't have any records of that. So unfortunately, I don't know how to speak Kashmiri, things like that, but it was very interesting to kind of get that. And but in many ways, I felt like, oh, that kind of explains why I was always so drawn to these Pahari paintings, these mountain paintings, and like, because in many ways, these
So
paintings are very
interesting. I
popular
did
in
a
Kashmir.
I did that test as well, and mine came up 73% Central Asian. So Omani, Afghani,
Oh,
Tajikistani, Pakistani, and only 27% Northern Indian. So, well, I look kind of Arabish anyway, so yeah, it makes sense. But yeah, so basically, carry on. And I want to hear about the twin flame stuff
yeah,
as well. So yeah.
yeah. Um, and I'm trying to like wrap this up because I know I can like kind of ramble a little bit, but hopefully no one's bored so far
No,
in
no,
this.
it's fascinating.
Um, Okay. But what was I saying? Yeah, so now these paintings, I again was drawn so I kind of created them him and I would always use kind of like analogies. I could never really explain like what I was looking for, but I would always use like I would always say, I want someone to look at my red paint, take their blue paint and make purple with me. That was always something that I would say. And I just didn't know what that meant, but I just knew that's something I always wanted. And just little things how I want to feel. And I would always say, like all my friends, there are certain aspect of my friends I guess our relationship that I really loved, or I think it something like one of my friends, I think she's very inspiring to me with her vision. And like that's a quality I loved about her. Another friend, I noticed how our interaction is like we're really very like when it comes to like work wise, we're kind of like the ultimate dream team. And then the other friend of mine, I felt like for with us, when it comes to artwork, it's just like we just get it and we can like visualize. And so I felt like each bit of aspect I kind of subconsciously maybe wanted. And I didn't even, and it sounded, I kind of sounds a little bit selfish. I don't know, like I guess in many ways how I'm picking and choosing, but I kind of felt like I was,
But you know what? It's almost also like, were you picking and choosing, or were the unit was the universe showing you these things and saying this is where you're gonna go, you know? So are you
no, that's the
co-creating?
thing. Yeah. But, and it's funny because when with my twin flame, I had that experience, but anyway, during this time period, during, I guess afterward, I graduated, I ended up like, again, had a lot of one of my friend, she used to do a lot of like, cup reading. She's very spiritual, like she has a lot of like spiritual gifts. And like she was still in her journey as well. And I think unfortunately, I'm no longer friends with her. And I think in this journey, our friendship kind of ended. Not in bad term. I mean, I'll explain
You
later,
grew
but
apart.
not grew apart, our values doesn't align. And I feel like even though I have so much love for her and I am always grateful for her, it's just like I feel like after what happened, like it just doesn't make sense for us to keep being each other's life at this point. And I think in many ways, she was part of she played a huge part in my twin flame journey. But
So all these ingredients you're bringing together, and you've had a catalyst, you've gone
mhm,
through almost being told you're going to get married to someone, but
mhm.
deep down you always held on to this idea of this beautiful love which complements you, helps you grow, becomes the best person and version of yourself. You're drawn to Kashmiri art and history and things like that. So tell
Yeah.
us about your twin flame.
So now my twin flame. Okay, so I now this how this journey kind of started. I think that was like kind of like I would kind of put in like phase one. So that was like phase one of like my life where I think I was kind of initially went through this experience. Now like the second phase was kind of I think initially started where I in November is a very important month in my journey. November in 2021, I got into a really bad car accident. I was traveling with friends in Poconos and no one got hurt. besides me. And I ended up like fracturing my left ankle. I like bruised my ribs. I have a bit of a trauma scar on my forehead. And this was literally like I was in a the role that I had just did an internal transfer, and I felt like, oh, I just did like a really nice switch, and I'm heading towards like my career that I wanted to do. And within a few months, this like I kind of saw it as like a bad omen. Like I guess other people kind of saw it as a bad omen, like wow, I just started and like this kind of happened. So now the crazy thing is that this um I knew deep down like I felt there was like a spiritual meaning behind it. And I've always thought like I was always lucky. Yes, I was very it sucks I got into this car accident and no one got hurt besides me in every way possible. And but it was so my fracture in my ankle, left ankle was so minor that they weren't even sure if I needed surgery or not. At the end I needed surgery, and because of this surgery, my trip to Tulum that was supposed to happen in January had to be canceled, postponed. So now I felt like my world just flipped 180 at this point because I felt like I was in this high. I'm in the career that I wanted. I'm traveling. I have great vision, hopes, but this accident just made me like, oh my God, like I can't even create goals or picture what I want to do 2 months from now just because I don't know if I can even like walk again and if I can heal properly. So 2022 was a year where I just took it day by day, but it's always like by that point, every time on my birthday, and my birthday's in December, like I would always just be so unsatisfied, just so unhappy with where I am in life. And I was just like, I'm just not happy. I'm just not happy. I had so much expectation for myself, and at the end, I'm not happy with where I'm at. I feel like I just don't see any change with what I wanted. Yeah, like I can like dig deeper and I can like think about all the moments where I really enjoy, had improvements and growth, but I feel like if you see it black and white, I felt like how I was in December 2021 is still the same as December 2022, in terms of like milestones. And then,
So tell us about the twin flame.
yeah, now this is where I had that thought process. Now in 2023, 2022, again, I had a layoff. I got laid off at my job. And then in 2023, end of it, I had the same feeling, not being happy with my life. And I ended up, since I was unemployed, I like, let me just go on a dating app. So I ended up joining a dating app, and I met my twin flame from there. And it was really interesting because when he showed up, like, cause I had the feature where you can like see the people who liked your profile. And I kept every time he would show up, I would like reject him. I would keep swiping left, but every time I would swipe left, the app would crash. And this happened a good like four or five times. And it got to a point I'm like, okay, you know what, whatever. Let me just swipe right. But when I saw his face, I remember like something about him was very familiar, but he has shades on. He has shades on, and I couldn't really read it again. I was like, okay, I'm overthinking this. Let me just swipe. He's tall, good enough. Swipe right. So
Is he
I
Kashmiri?
no, he's actually Gujarati. And
Okay.
it was a South Asian, it was a Dil app that I used. And when I read his bio, I liked how he was also like an art lover. He was an art lover. I felt like his bio was very interesting, but I was also very like, scrutinizing and critiquing because I kind of noticed like, oh, he said that like, he gets one thing about him, people he gets misunderstood. So in my head, I'm like, oh, why are you being misunderstood? Are you like a bad communicator or are you like a narcissist? So I was like already on edge. I'm already like thinking about all these things. And I we ended up but when I saw him, I did think he had a nice smile. So when we connected, my app, the Dilma app is never like for some reason there's something issues with the app where like I won't get the notification. So I um ended up so I think end of February of 2023, I got like a notification. I saw like the message a week later, and he messaged me saying, "You have a cute smile." And I was like, "Oh, that was my first impression of you too, where you have a nice smile too." And from that point, I didn't know he's actually not from New York. He's actually based in Cali, the Bay Area. But at this point, I had no idea. And so because of the time difference, he wouldn't message back immediately. It would take a bit of time, but for some reason he was on my mind. Like I remember thinking, like, oh my God, I don't know why he's on my mind, and I couldn't stop thinking about him. And I told my friend about it, And like we ended up moving over to Instagram and we started talking from there. And it was interesting because immediately I was just triggered. I was just triggered, like my wounds, like past wounds. Like there was like the first thing he saw me when I saw my Instagram. Because again, I felt like again, mind you, I wasn't happy with who I am. I was overweight. I have my PCOS. I'm unemployed. So I felt very much uncomfortable with who I was, where I am at. So I archived most of my photos. And when he saw some of my photos, he was just like, "Oh my God, you're beautiful, you're gorgeous. Like, we should do some photo shoots sometimes." And that like triggered something in me because there was a moment in undergrad where I felt like I wasn't good enough when it came to modeling and stuff like that. So it was just like, why is this coming up? Like very random old scenarios was coming up during my interactions with him. And then, so we were talking for a bit, and then while we were talking, immediately he was just like, "Oh my God, we're like twins." And I'm like, "Hold on." I honestly, I got the ick. Like when I was talking to him, I got the ick. I wasn't that interested in him. To be honest, I couldn't even look at his face because I thought he was so ugly. Very weird. And then, moving on, I was like, but then again, I was drawn to him and I couldn't explain it. And my friends thought I was just funny. Like, okay, Suze, you're just being you, like since I could be very blunt and I could kind of like, so they're like, oh, just give it some time. And my friends was really pushing me to give this a shot and not to like end it. But and I told him, hey, and also since I think the way he was talking was very like, even though he's 5 years older, by the way, he's 5 years older. At that time I was 26 when I like met him and he was 31. So I felt like this man is like what again, maybe there could be that generational gap because he's a millennial and I'm like a zillennial, and maybe the way we text that generational gap. But I just felt like the way he was texting was very juvenile to me. So I was just like, hey, I'm a conversationalist. I like to talk, I like to get deep. This is not doing it for me. So I was just like, hey, do you want to like be on a phone call or something. So just we can get deeper. And his reaction was just very odd to me because I think it was very much fear-based, very much like holding on, apologizing profusely, and so forth. Just thought it was a bit odd. Now, um, now this is kind of like I think where the mystical stuff happened, where I had an event. I was gonna go to an event. I was gonna go to this Indo warehouse rave, and I was gonna stay over at my friend's place. And prior, I kind of wanted to get a little high. So, and I haven't done weed in a really long time. So I was just like, okay, I wanted to try it out. So my friend got me some, and I was at home, and I was I he ended up giving me the wrong dosage. But during this time period, I was looking through his Instagram, and that's when I suddenly found him cute. I'm like, oh, he's actually kind of cute. I don't know why I thought he was ugly. And then from there, out of nowhere, I recalled I made a painting, and during that time period and this painting that I made, I felt like this painting represented kind of like my person. It was like this orange yellow background. It had like swirls, like brush strokes that really represents in my eyes looks like the Farsi scriptures in a lot of these like miniature paintings. And I labeled it like I labeled the green as Layla because her eyes are green. And I've always felt like my Majid is blue. Whoever my person is, he's blue. His aura is blue. I've always felt that way. And that's what the blue stroke represents. Now, I don't want to give his name away, but it's kind of obvious. But like, I ended up calling him Sky. So his name translates to sky. And I was just like, oh my God, like, is he my person? Because again, I saw the connection. My painting looks like a sky. It's the color blue. You know what I mean? He just fell into
It
my
also
lap.
means heaven, doesn't it?
Yeah. So I was just like, mind you, I mean, I'm high, right? But I'm getting really excited. So I now fast forward, I felt something really strong about this. Try to meet up with him, try to have this phone call. He didn't make it. He didn't make it. And I was very much turned off again because I felt like I had certain expectations and I just don't communicate this way. And I immediately was just like, hey, I don't think this is gonna work out because I don't deal with this. And I try to end it. But again, I couldn't sleep at night, couldn't stop thinking about him. And I was talking about my friends about this. And at the end, my
Was this
heart,
usual? Was this usual for you to feel? Like with a guy, like would you normally react this way or is different to other?
Well, I mean, I would, the way he handled the situation, I wouldn't even do this with a friend. So in my head, like if I don't do this with a friend, why would I do this with a guy, right? But for some odd reason, my heart felt like I was too irrational. Like I was too quick to, make this decision. And even though I was thinking and my thing is that I'm a very logical person. Um, and but in this whole journey, I felt like logic doesn't work. And I felt like the way I go by the books and I feel like for me, I'm someone who I love research. I love researching. I feel like knowledge gives me power, knowledge gives me comfort. And I feel like if I don't know something, I look it up as a way to prepare myself. And I felt like, okay, I'm seeing the red flags. Let me stay, alert. Even though I was doing that, I was still much drawn to him and I couldn't explain it. So at the end, I messaged him like, hey, I can't stop thinking about you, etc. Like, I don't know why, blah, blah, blah. And we ended up like, we talked about it and I ended up decided to giving him another shot. And we decided to have this phone call again when I went to my trip in Miami in April of 2023. So we met and I thought it was so funny. His birthday is October 22nd, which is that, remember that Majid, that artist? His birthday is also like October 22nd. And I was just like, oh my God, what is this? Like I remember getting goosebumps. I was like, this feels so magical. And like during that whole time period in Miami when we were talking, I felt like I was in a honeymoon phase. Like I felt like I was in a dream, like how our interaction was, and we were just getting deeper and closer. And one thing I liked about him was like how he said he was honest, and he was very open. He made me feel very comfortable. And that never happened to me before where I felt comfortable. And I just feel like I can like feel his energy in many ways. And then oh, and I think what during this point, I remember like he sent like a voice note and immediately I was obsessed with his voice. Like I couldn't stop hearing his voice and I'm like, Seuss, you're acting crazy. Like this is so weird. And when we had our first FaceTime call, like um it was something about his eyes. He did something with his eyes, and it just felt like I was looking at myself. Like, and I couldn't pinpoint to what was happening, but I felt like this deep connection. And the more we talked, the more I was just like, whoa, we have a lot of similarities, a lot of like, we were both kind of like in the same situation in our life where we are not really where we wanted to be in our career. But he's also someone who has a graphic design background. And so it's weird because I'm trying to go into design and he already has that. So it's like very a lot of like intertwining and a lot of experiences are very similar. And I was just like, wow, okay, I think this might be it. Because in my head, I have a list. I'm like, okay, he checks off the list. Yeah, I'm like, he checks off the list. This is good. Okay, this feels safe enough for me to like do this now. But I'm also a very logical person. This is long distance. He's in California. Oh, I forgot to mention. So the reason why I even entertained this at this point was because remember how I had that Tulum trip? I ended up like postponing it. Now I had the credits remaining and I ended up doing I saw that oh I can go to San Francisco. And I ended up going to San Francisco in November. So again, that was 1 year after my accident. I went to San Francisco, and because I was around the area, and since I knew he was from the Bay Area, I was just like, "Oh, okay, like this feels familiar. Okay, I know what the Bay Area looks like. This is familiar. I can't really picture myself being with someone who's not from New York, but like I'll give it a shot. I'll see what happens." But that was the only reason why I even like inter was decided to talk with him because of that. So, anyway, so we started talking and again felt like it was in a honeymoon phase. One of very odd spiritual mother moment was while we were talking, I don't know what we were in the conversation, but we were talking and I think we were talking about something about his face turning blue. And instead of giving like a normal gif, he sent a picture of Krishna. And I remember like when I saw that picture of Krishna, I was a bit like, whoa, what is this? Like it was just so random. Like, and I felt like it was a bit like it was weird to me just seeing like anyone you could have chose any other photos and we were you chose that photo and I thought it just felt just threw me by surprise. And now looking back at it, I think there were certain again symbols and signs where like related with God, God images that resonated. And like again, He's an art lover. He's an art lover, and his family, parents apparently like they collect miniature paintings. And he told me like, oh, like his parents collect, and he showed me a picture of these old paintings. And again, it was like, whoa, this is so weird. Like I literally have my own little miniature paintings that I collected, and I kind of gave these meanings of like, this is how I want to experience love. And I gave like these meanings to it. So I think it was just so much coincidence, so much like
Synchronicities.
it's
Yeah.
yeah, and I felt like it was very much like I felt like I was dreaming at this point. Like this did not feel real to me. Now we come back from Miami. This was literally with a span of like what, like a month. Within a month, all this was happening. And then once I got back, that's when like the whole runner and chaser thing happened. We were supposed to talk in person or have phone calls. Didn't happen. He didn't do
Like
it. And
pulling back. So pulling back.
yeah, he started pulling back. And I was just like, okay, let's talk about it. And I'm someone who, hey, confrontational, hey, let's talk about it, let's solve our problems. And I like to be direct. I, but he's like, sorry, I don't have time. And he just vanished. And that like triggered something in me. And that's when I realized during this period, while he was avoiding, realized that I have fearful avoidant attachment style. Like my attachment style was really triggered. And I didn't know, but it got into my whole feature, I
Reaction.
guess, diagnosis of like, oh my God, what's going on? And I'm very analytical and I need to like do research. And that's when I like realized like, oh, I took this test and stuff online, and I was talking with my therapist as well. And I realized like, oh, I fear for avoidant. And that's what this was. Like, I guess like I would have severe anxiety not hearing from him. Like I felt like I was, again, old wounds were coming back.
Did that
So,
trigger, like, for it to be obviously with the twin flame, it triggers an awakening, doesn't it? And a lot
mhm.
of weird stuff happens.
Yeah, I
Well,
think that now this is the part where after because I was unemployed and I was trying to see him, okay, I'm like, okay, where is this gonna go? Like I'm trying to like if there's something here, let's do it. If not, don't waste my time. Like that was just kind of like how I was operating. And I think this was even more essential for me just because right after I got back from Miami, my world really did like fall apart. My dad ended up being diagnosed with cancer. So my dad was diagnosed with cancer, and this was just like, whoa. Like I felt like I just didn't understand what was going on, and I took some time to really conceptualize what was happening. And like um obviously a lot of grief was I didn't know at that time, but I was going through anticipatory grief during the past 18 months, like while my dad was battling with cancer, and he had like stage 4 he has stomach cancer.
and
And
is he okay now,
I'm sorry.
or is he
He
okay?
ended up passing away actually. He actually passed away last November. Again, like November is a very like special month for me. And like now, during this time period, like one thing I was great, even though me and him, again, that whole separation happened and I didn't know what was going on. It wasn't until I actually saw Jessica, I forgot her last name, but Guided Space, I think that's her YouTube. I know you did like an interview with her.
Hmm.
Her videos popped up and she had a whole video of like, how do you know if you met your twin flame, things like that. She had like 19 signs or whatever. And I was going through, I'm like, oh, check, check, check. Is he like my twin flame? Now, I've heard of the word twin flame before, but back in my head, I'm like, I don't want to be in a twin flame relationship. Like, just because in my head, I was just kind of like, oh, this sounds something. I've heard this is like kind of toxic. That's just like my minor like understanding of it.
Hmm.
So, now and I was just sending it to my friends and stuff like that. Again, my friends were doing the best they can, obviously, but again, I couldn't explain what I was going through. I would just like have severe anxiety and then I would just start crying out of nowhere, just really holding, and I just couldn't explain like these emotional roller coasters that I was going through. And I mean,
Was
I was
that
still,
towards the guy, or was that because of your father, or
I
everything?
It was everything. I think really my emotions just all got jumbled up with everything. Like, yes, I was experiencing with my dad, but moments with him, like I was also grieving how like, oh my God, like I thought there's something between us, but then this is not going how I expected. Like I thought that like after we talk, we were both interested. And I have a very naive perspective where if a guy, if we're both interested it's going to be smooth sailing from here, but that's not what's happening. And I kind of felt like, damn, it feels like right person, wrong timing. And I've never really believed that concept like before. I've heard stories, but I was kind of just like, no, I feel like everything happens for a reason. If this person isn't coming, if he isn't showing up correct, that means this person isn't the right person. Like I've
How
always
did
had
you cope? How did you manage? Were you having like counseling, therapy, work? How
so
did
now, this is a funny part. That friend of mine that I was talking about, where she played a huge part in my journey. She was really, I think she's kind of in a twin flame journey, but we're not too sure. But she feels it and she has always been a bit spiritual. She started learning to do tarot cards and she would have her guides read these, I guess give her readings sometimes.
hmm
And so I would start, I guess, like going to her whenever logic wouldn't make sense to me, I would go to her and I'm like, hey, I need guidance. Like I feel like at this point logic isn't working. I don't know what's going on. Um, Help me. And I would ask certain questions and many ways she was right and many ways it gave me sometimes some of the things that she said again, I took things with a grain of salt and I kind of took what resonated and I try to figure out like, okay, how can I apply it to my current journey? I that's when I also stumbled upon like your videos as well and I like was going through and I think that really helped a lot like in general like I think the mirror exercise because I'm like okay if I'm in this journey let's see and it's so crazy like I think a lot of my avoidant tendencies were happening. I think the more I was trying to like understand him I was like learning about myself like I realize like I think with like my career options like with work with me having ADHD like not really understanding it until like it was through him so
did he ever
but
come back or confirm the connection or anything? Did he?
he and yeah I mean the sorts at that he would always tell me like he felt our connection he felt like we were different he felt like our connection is different and like I remember um this one time and this where like I think he saw my photo and he was just like you just glow like I don't know why but you just look like you're glowing like and I'm like what are you talking about and he was just be like it's just like there's like glow like light within running through your veins and I'm like are you high right now and he was like laughing but that was just like some things he said and I just remember thinking like oh is are these things that he's because I've
Did
heard like
did
things
you see?
how your TM's supposed to
Did you
look.
see him glow as well?
I- Can be honest, I actually personally feel like when I met him, I saw him as someone who's very distorted. I think when I was talking to him and but in many ways when I was talking to him, he was someone who hid behind his shade. Like he wouldn't open up. And I think like in many ways he opened up eventually. That's the change I saw in him. And I think like in many ways like a lot of his flaws reminded me of like what I was going through in undergrad, like rejection and like not feeling good enough and just like I saw it and I couldn't explain it. Like I couldn't explain to people, but I felt like I felt what he was feeling because it just I just saw his flaws that was a resemblance to mine.
Did
And
you
I felt
see? Did you see his distortions heal or improve over the years or the months?
and that's like the interesting part where I felt like I was seeing it, like where, okay, because as time was going, he was opening up, and then like um, he was, he was honest with me, like, hey, like right now he's just dealing with a lot, and he can't focus on this relationship, blah 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 blah. Like he felt that way. So I kind of like, okay, that's fine. And now I wanted to just confirm, like in 2023, I wanted to confirm if there's something here. So I kept trying to see him, but it's like the universe didn't want me to see him. Like I book a flight to to go to San Francisco, and literally that's when I got laid off again. And I'm like, what is this? And then he ended up a week later, I still decided to go because I'm like, I really need to know if this someone who's that, our connection is real or not, and he would always just be like, I'm telling you, like, I always just felt the way he would talk, I felt like he was in love with me. Like he never said it, but just our energy. And again, he was very sexual, and like, but even the way we talked, it just there were like layers to it and depth to it. I felt like just from his energy now. I don't know. I mean, I also don't have that much experience, so I'm always a bit skeptical,
Did you
but
ever get, did you ever have any level of intimacy, whether it was holding hands or I don't know, anything else like
I
that
mean, I
shaped?
feel like I've danced with guys before, and I mean, I had a non-consensual kiss before, but like again, I was just so insecure, and I just didn't like guys touching me. That's another thing too. For some reason, I just don't like men touching me. It was like one of those things. Again, I don't know if it's like my body image issues, but in general, it would feel like needles prickling me when men would touch me, and I just never knew why that would
You know,
happen.
you said ADHD, but have you checked yourself for autism?
I don't know. I think I have to probably check because I have no idea. I've never
Because
really got my.
autistic people can have issue with intimacy at times.
Because I know I like when I was trying to figure out like why am I so sensitive, I ended up like finding about how HSP, highly sensitive people, and that's when I kind of delve into it, and I was just like, oh, I think I'm an HSP because a lot of the things that they mention make sense. And now,
So what's
but,
the
but back,
status? Yeah, what's the status right now?
yeah. So that's the crazy part where like we were seeing progress. Us and he offered that he was gonna fly out because he saw in April I found I because I'm kind of crazy. I like went through Facebook and there's a couple of these like groups where you can figure out if you're dating the same person or not. Are we dating the same guy? So I ended up posting a picture back in like 2023. And like no one came out, like no one came out because I was trying to see if there's any red flags with him, things like that. No one came out. I'm like, okay, he's clean, we're good. And now, when I went to see him, literally in April, a girl messaged and she messaged me, and so apparently he's been talking to her. So I didn't know there was like third party involved in this moment, and she like reached out and like she was telling me like, oh, how he would like message her, and it wasn't until like beginning of this year. And but things that she never met him. She was like, she's never met him, things like that. So when I and she sent me screenshots, I'm like, oh, can you send me screenshots? Because I'm not about to like, believe what you have to say. So, and I was just really baffled by this because I was just like, wait a minute, like I was asking him this year, like, are you, because again, we're not in a relationship. I get it. If you're talking to people, that's fine. I've always been upfront and honest about it too. Like,
But he said
um,
that um he wasn't in the headspace to do that with anyone, right?
yeah, he told me he's working on himself. And then at the moment I said, well, are you talking to anyone? Like while we were, because there were a lot of moments of separation between us. And he said that, like, no, he wasn't talking to anyone. So I'm like, okay, like, I mean, again, I have to take your word for it, like if he's showing so much interest and things like that. And again, he doesn't have to lie. So when this happened and when I saw, I was a bit like baffled. I was like, wait, what the hell? And I felt like, I think that this is now where doubt is coming for me and I'm not because I do understand that like hey 6 months like I don't DM when it comes to like their healing they're behind and like I thought it was interesting because I'm like wait a minute like I feel like I've been carrying myself with so much grace and I've been working on myself. Like I would assume that I would see improvement. Like, like I would see, and I thought I did because I fact that there was finally like movement towards our relationship where he wants to see me and we were gonna meet up. As I said, okay, I'll let you know. Like, let me first, because I know, because my dad passed away last November. So I'm currently in this 1 year, I don't do anything to like harm my dad's soul from moving forward. So I'm like, if we do meet, it has to be in November or after November. So, I think
When did you first meet or talk to your twin, the person who you think is your twin flame? When did you first talk to them? Was it 2022? Was it
I
November?
I spoke to him 2023. So I spoke to him March of 2023 and I saw him through FaceTime. We only saw each other through FaceTime once. And most of our conversation was done through
I mean,
texting and we'll send each other
you're
photos.
meant to see improvements if they're your twin flame, but it depends on how much distortions you have, okay? So I was on a
Hmm.
journey 2.5 years, and my twin only started showing a real improvement 2 years after. But I also kick ass with inner work and purpose and life, like constantly 24/7. And my twin was extremely distorted. But you do get, well, all the dreams and their energy like kind of confirms that you're on the journey. But did you get any dreams about some people?
Yeah, I would like get a lot of dreams. So I like wrote it down just so I don't like forget. But I mean, a couple of the dreams I had was hold on, let me just like look at my notes. Um, hold on.
It's like for me, like the first dream I had was where he was like, "You got to be patient with me." I was like, "What do you mean?" And then another dream, the second dream I had is where he was learning Punjabi, Hindi, and talking to me over Zoom. And then
Mhm,
the whole journey went from him like running, and then us dating, and then us getting married, and then us having kids, and then us having houses, doing our purpose, like literally having a whole life. And in dreams, I would go back to see his childhood and see all the trauma and the abuse. It was all
mhm.
shown to me. Everything was shown, and also the future was shown to me. Yeah, and then his ghost would just haunt
I
me.
feel like for me, I think a couple of again, so one of the main dreams I had was that and this is in 2023 where I was really much in my fear-based energy and huge doubt, a lot of fear because I didn't know how this is even real. And I remember I had a phone call with him and he told me, hey, this is not gonna work.
Oh, we're having a little interference. Oh,
Oh,
there
okay.
you had a phone in the dream. You had a phone call.
Yeah, it was I got a phone call from him and he was saying that, hey, this is not gonna work because of my mom. And I remember I had a lot of anxiety and I was confused what was going on. And immediately out of like nowhere, I just see Radha and Krishna photo just pop up and it's like zooms into my face, almost like to wake me up. And I like woke up. I woke up and I remember like I was just so baffled by that dream and I didn't know what it really meant. For me, it felt like that dream was trying to tell me, hey, like, don't allow fear to distort the illusion. Like, that's how I took it as for
Well,
this
Radha and
dream.
Krishna are your archetypal twin flames, and then his mother wound. Well, I guess when you're saying my because of my mother, there's a mother issue.
Mm. And I knew he's like he said that he's a bit of a mom, like he's really close with his mom. And I I felt like when we were talking, he has a very distorted view of love. Like I felt like his love is very transactional. And I think like just from his just the way some certain moments, he just seems when I was talking to him, honestly, like I felt like he needs a lot of healing. And my friend who would do the tarot card reading and she had really good insights, she would tell me like, oh man, Sus, he has a lot of baggage. Like he needs to heal. He really needs to heal. He needs to like and I felt like now given I felt like I'm working on myself, but I don't know if like I'm not doing enough. I don't know. Like because I would have like my moments where I would kind of like slack off sometimes and it would take some time, but I've been since I started like this journey, I've been going to doing yoga. I was doing yoga. I've Therapy hasn't really helped to me. I feel like in this journey, yeah, I've done a lot of therapy already, and like I feel like logic isn't helping. So I've kind of went towards the spiritual realm, and like I've been doing a bit more meditation. And I think another funny, interesting thing I don't think I got to mention where I felt like kind of like a really interesting synchronicity is where, um we both said I love you to each other, and he said that he has like he has really really deep feelings for me, and like no I don't know if this is he's really my twin flame or not. I have no idea at this point, but as of now, but at that time when I felt like he was like my twin flame, he said that he had like deep love for me and like he knew just the way I guess how I showed up and I guess how I was, because there was one moment when we were supposed to meet up in New Jersey and he didn't show up and I saw it as I immediately just knew he's self-sabotaged this. He was
Crazy.
afraid that I was gonna reject him.
And you know what? Like
And
that's
like
the thing. Sometimes people think that we're crazy, like, oh, like it's all just in your head. I know my twin said to me as well, he said, it's not that I don't feel the connection, I'm just busy. and your one's obviously, whether he's a twin flame or not, he's obviously confirmed that he loves you, but he's running.
He's learning, yeah, and he would always say, and he would tell me like, I want to show you that I care about you, and he would always say like, and I'm like, okay, well, show me, like, and I think I'm just like, I won't, and he would tell me, do you trust me? And I'm just like, I'm not too sure, like, I mean, maybe, but not 100%, because again, the logic side of me, like, I do feel comfortable, but then at the same time, it is very odd to me, again, such a logical person to like, how do I explain, like, like I have deep
I
feelings for, I
feel
have
like
deep
your
love for
twin
you.
flame, like when you're around them, they disarm you and you actually let them all in, and then they come in and completely trash everything and then run off.
Yes. Oh my, that literally is how I feel about him, to be honest. I feel like when I let him in and I feel like um I get really comfortable. I feel like I see myself in him so much, but then at the same time, like when I see some of the things that he does, I'm just like, I just know I wouldn't do this. But then sometimes later I would say that, but then later on I would see how some of the things he did, like it makes sense to me. I feel like the thing about him too as well, where like the way he communicates, at first it would like irritate me, but then later on his words would help me in my journey. And it was just like, oh wow, I get it
The
now.
why
I
of
get
the sale. Yeah.
yeah.
So what's next for you? What do you see for yourself with him? Just
Yeah.
generally, are you in a place of just allowing, surrendering, just working on you, doing your own thing? If it's gonna happen, it's gonna happen. If it's gonna reveal itself as twin flame, let it be. Are you like very balanced about it, relaxed, or
Um, I think I think for 100%, I think I've believed this even like last year because I felt like this whole journey for me has been like letting go and trusting God, even up to the point where my Um, especially the whole journey with like my dad passing, that was just something that really, really was ingrained in me where like I really have no control. Like I really have no control over anything. And at this point, the only thing I can do is make the best of it and to just focus on myself. And um I think the type of love that I was giving out learned to pour into myself. And I've been working on that. And I think a lot of the things I've been working on is just seeing how yeah, who knows if this person truly is my twin flame or not, but I feel like for me, it doesn't matter because he's just a chess piece. He's just a chess piece. I feel like my journey started way before I met him, and I think this really is just about me coming into terms with who I am and healing my own traumas. And sometimes like, hey, maybe I had a blind spot. I had a blind spot. I did all these healing like in undergrad, but there's still so many things I didn't heal and I had no idea. There were a lot of like growth in me. I think if it wasn't through him, I wouldn't have felt comfortable with my body. I felt like I've now feel so much more comfortable with my body. I feel like towards like my career trajectory, I think even just believing in God, and I truly believe in many ways. I guess just a symbolism and everything in my eyes is just such a beautiful love story towards like myself. And I feel like it's not even about the label. At this point, it's not about the labels.
to
Yeah.
trust?
Yeah. So in my head, like who knows if he really, even though I kind of use ChatGPT to kind of like check our, birth chart and I try to like do a bit of like synchronicity just to see like, I'm sorry, compatibility, just to see like, okay, do we align? And we were in what I've read multiple times, it was showing that we are very much compatible and it was very like I had ChatGPT validate for me that we
I
are
recently
in.
doing tarot readings in ChatGPT because I connect with my higher self and I love it. But yeah,
But yeah, I like been using that a little bit, but regardless, I think that doesn't change the fact that I think this person is just someone who's just a chess piece. He came into my life for certain change and growth, and if he's there, if he's truly meant to be the one for me, like I have no doubt God will
align
bring
it
him.
up.
Yeah,
Yeah.
and then like, and there's no reason for me to worry or to even overthink about this because I think the more I sit and like overthink, it's just like wasted energy. It's just like wasted energy for something I have no control over. And I feel like at the end of the day, like I've just gone through so many experience that just shows to me that God has always had my back. Like he has never failed me time and time again. Even like something so minuscule where like I was in a dangerous situation, but like it could have been so much worse. But God protected me. Like I feel like when normal people hear is just my situation and my life so far, they're like, damn, Suze, you went through a lot. And I'm just, but in my head, I was just like, but it makes sense. Like it makes sense, and I see like the beauty in everything. If it wasn't for these experiences, I wouldn't be where I am today. And I feel like I have so much knowledge in that, and that's why I think at the end of the day, this journey really isn't about the other person, it's really about you. And I think that's what I'm working on right now, where there's still so much more I need to work on. I think again, I'm still dealing with grief with my dad passing. I think there's still some like issues I had to deal with in that sense. I think there's still more in terms of my career. Like I'm not fully there yet. There's a lot of work I need to do. So who knows if like he is my twin flame or not, but I am kind of excited to see what happens in November, just because I feel like I've been seeing the signs, I've been seeing certain patterns, and I'm not trying to
Fated,
foreshadow.
some sort of fainted synchronistic connection anyway. And the twin flame journey itself, anyway, is to bring you back to yourself, to make
Yeah.
you face yourself where there needs alignment or letting go. And at the end of the day, we are our own worst enemy, and God is always there for us, but we overthink or focus on the bad. And we're learning through this process, whatever it is, to focus on the now, on the good, put the energy where we want to go, and really thrive and flourish. And it's exciting and fun to see the next step, to see how all these synchronistic parts and how these fated connections are taking us somewhere more juicier, more exciting places, and staying in that space rather than I gotta work. What about I've got to enjoy it? I've got to have fun. I've got to like see how it excites me and plans out. Like more of an adventure than anything more else.
Yeah, no, I think like, and I think the biggest thing for me is that I've always felt like that's something I've always been interested in making an impact. And I think right now I've been really just focusing right now, hey, what are things that I can do to just give back to the community? Like I'm already doing volunteer work, but there's just so much more that I need to do. So again, I feel like my plate is kind of full and focusing on myself. I don't have time to think about you don't really have time to think about your twin flame, honestly.
And if it's when and if and whatever, it will just line up.
I
And
agree. Yeah.
always perfect. It's always perfect. But thank you so much for taking your time today.
Yeah, thank you so much. I really appreciate being part of this interview and thank you so much. I had a really great time sharing my
Yeah.
story.
And like you said, you're open to all. And I think whatever it is, for all of us, that's how we should live. We shouldn't just stay fixated on this one person. We should really just say, you know what, if it's going to happen, it's going to happen. And let's do what we can with what we know we can do, you know?
Yeah, I agree. I feel like at the end of the day, if you truly believe God won't do you wrong, whoever's meant to be in your life will come in correct. Just have that faith and it'll happen.
Yeah, and trust it and go with it as well.
Yeah.
Okay. Thank you.
Thank you.